So there's no fossils in any of these rocks, either these sedimentary rocks or the non-sedimentary rocks. No fossils. That's why it's called the Great Unconformity, because all of a sudden, all the rocks above, they all have fossils, an explosion of fossils in them. Is that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
There I am, I'm sitting right above on the inner gorge. This is Vishnu schist in there, and you can see the rocks. There's another picture, my friend Jim was on a trip. You can see the Vishnu schist there, which is non-sedimentary. You can see the Grand Canyon supergroup that has no fossils, and then you can see the Great Unconformity. So, it's very, as I said, there's nothing else like it in the entire rock record. Here's University of Wisconsin-Madison, Shannon Peters quote. So it occurs worldwide, and the geologists, many geologists say, well, formed billions of years ago deep in the Earth's crust, and young rock, meaning billions of years old, left by shallow seas that covered the continents just a half a billion years ago. So interesting, all these shallow seas, all these underwater deposits, but there's no fossils in them. The reason they say it's so old is because there's no fossils. So here you have the ones that were deposited on top of the unconformity, and you see, if you probably can't read it, but it says near to offshore shallow marine reef, near to offshore shallow marine reef, Torowik Foundation, Coconino sandstone, sand dunes. They say they're windblown, but they probably were formed underwater because they have different kinds of water fossils in them. Hermit shale, coastal swamp, Supai group, near shore intertidal shallow marine shelf, estuary, red wall formation, offshore shallow marine shelves, tidal channels, offshore, you know, you get the picture? They're all underwater. Offshore, they're all under, which means pretty significant depth of water. Maybe hundreds of feet, maybe shallower. Every single layer in a mile of rock was pretty much formed underwater. Interesting, huh? So here's the one layer that they were talking about that they suggest was formed in a vast desert because they're all sand dunes. But you can see the cross bedding in the sand dunes. That's evidence of the sand dunes. However, it's really evidence of tremendous water flow. It's hundreds of feet deep. These sand dunes can be 100 feet high. So it has to be water that's flowing very rapidly and hundreds of feet deep. And these sand dunes are found all over the entire southwest of the United States, thousands of square miles. You can find the same layer with the same kind of 100-foot sand dunes in Zion National Park and Grand Canyon, etc. There's a sand dune that you can find in, I believe that's Zion National Park. Yes. So you can see the cross bedding in the sand dunes of the sand, and you can see it's very. If you've ever been to these parks out west, it's kind of very interesting to be able to see something like this. So you don't get sand dunes like that unless you have water that is very deep, 100 feet, hundreds of feet deep, and is flowing very rapidly.
And
So
it's not a sand dune anymore, correct? It's a rock now.
it's a rock now, right?
Okay.
You could say this is a, I don't know, fossilized sand dune, but it's not really a fossil. There's just a few places where it happens to have eroded away to reveal individual sand dunes. Most of it, you can just see the cross bedding. So here we are back to some pictures. Now, by the way, if you go into the canyon and you look, you're looking from this side, you can see very clearly the Great Unconformity. But if you were hiking this way and you were looking at the forward edge, you wouldn't see it. So everywhere you look in the Grand Canyon, you're not going to see it unless you're looking at the angle where it is clearly evident. There's another picture. So here is a geologist. I just pulled this off the internet. he's pointing to the Great Unconformity. So the rocks above have fossils in them, the ones below do not. You can see the rocks above, you see how they have gravel in them, they have different things in them, right? And so here is where the Tapete sandstone, which has lots of fossils in it, is resting directly on this Vishnu schist, which is not even sedimentary. Geologists who are creationists believe that Vishnu schist is the original created rock of the planet. And the sedimentary rock that doesn't have fossils in it, the Bible is talking about the waters above and the waters below. There's a lot of water action going on before God creates the plants and the animals. But this man believes, and many geologists today will say, that there's 1.6 billion years between this finger and that finger. So it's just like missing. There's nothing. There's a 1.6 billion year gap. Isn't that interesting? With nothing in it. Why do they say that?
Because they can't explain it.
Because they can't explain it. Because you have to get from no fossils to an explosion of life. And you have no transitional forms, nothing in there. So we just have all that rock has been eroded away and missing, and you can't find it anywhere. Very interesting. How could we possibly disprove the theory if, well, it just is all gone and disappeared? But it
So
was
is that
there
to
at one
back it
time.
up to the Big Bang Theory? Is that why they throw in that 1.6?
No, no, they throw in the 1.6 billion because they think that the more time you have to have enough time for this process to happen, for life to form, because it's so incredible that life formed. It has to have a long period of time. And then once you have life, it can modify more rapidly, hundreds of millions of years. But to get from non-life to life, you have to have a really, really long time. So that's why they say 1.6 billion years.
So they reject the law, what was it, the second law, that everything is in a constant state of deterioration?
Well, right, they have to.
So
They
they
have to
reject a law
ignore.
of science
They
to
have to
try to
ignore what
prove
we
their
said.
scientific
Right.
theory.
They have to ignore what we said last time, because, remember the formula: matter plus energy plus time equals life, which is the evolutionary formula, right? This is a formula for evolution we talked about, right? So they basically ignore that the more time, the less order. Which is what the second law says. The more time you have, the less order you have. Remember I said you start with a photograph and you photocopy it once, and then you photocopy the photocopy, you photocopy the photocopy. Well, the more times you do that, the less information you get, and eventually you just have noise. And you keep photocopying the noise, you always get noise. So, and energy, by the way, also was the other thing. The more energy you have, the less order you have. That's the first law. So basically, the whole equation is completely wrong. So here's the guy I hiked with, Steve Austin. By the way, if you can,
Which one is he?
he's this guy right here in yellow shirt. It says ICR in his hat, Institute for Recreation Research. It says Austin on it. You can't read it from there. But
Bionic Man.
Bionic Man, yeah. But if you look him up online, he teaches at a university, I think, in Ohio. But he's got lots of stuff, and he is fantastic. You just listen to some things by him, he's fantastic. Talking about geology and different geologic features and Darwin. But he explains how this great unconformity is topped by sedimentary rock that is formed underwater that has even boulders in it, huge boulders the size of houses, that would have to have been moved there by incredibly rapid, massive flow of water. And nobody doubts that all of these rock layers were laid down underwater. Nobody doubts that, except for the debate over the Coconino sandstone, that one layer. They suppose that it could have been laid down in a desert, but it's probably not. So there's the Great Unconformity. We're looking at it right there. You can go down there and find a place where it is and say, I touched the Great Unconformity.
He's gonna,
So, what's that?
not.
See,
Okay.
I'd be the idiot who's like trying to chip off a piece of the rock that's underneath it just to take it home as a souvenir.
Well, there's plenty of rock down there, so people can chip it off. I mean, it's not
It's
like,
like going back
it's
in
like
time.
there's a
just-
rock, right? Yeah, there's like so much rock, it's like, it might be eroded away in 20 years anyway, the jalt rock that you chipped off that's exposed. So, here is an example. Do you notice something here? Anybody notice something in this picture? We're looking into the canyon, and you notice something interesting there?
It's a wave.
Right. So you can see this rock sort of slumping and curves, right?
Ooh,
Right? You saw that?
no, there's a green cross.
Oh. Okay. Okay, I didn't
Did you see that?
Right there?
Oh,
Yep.
okay, there you go.
That was Fred's
So
cute observation.
this is slumping when the sediment was wet. Now, this is like 300 feet of sediment that had slumped and curved when it was wet. How did that happen? 200, 300 feet of sediment.
A
How did
lot
it-
of time, Perry. Time.
And this is what the secular geologists will say, that for a long, long period of time and slow, gradual process, the rock can be bent. Now, what is the evidence for that? Nobody can demonstrate that because clearly it was before humans were in existence, this was happening. So how can you possibly disprove that? You can't. And what we see today is we see movement of the earth, the pressure builds up and then it moves.